Welcome to Bedtime Historia. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey, not through space, but through time. A journey into the past, where women, just like us, felt anxious, restless, or overwhelmed by the world around them. And how, across centuries, people tried to understand and comfort their fragile hearts. This is a story about history, yes, but more than that, it's a story about care, about patience, about soft hands holding trembling ones, about how even in times when we didn't know much, we still tried to soothe what we couldn't yet name. If this feels comforting to you, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Bedtime Historia, and if you feel comfortable doing so, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you right now. It brings us so much warmth knowing that people from all around the world are sharing this calm, gentle moment together. Thank you deeply for being here with us tonight. Before we begin, let's take one slow breath together. In and out. If you're lying down, settle into your pillow. If you're sitting, lean back. Let your eyes close if you'd like. Turn off the lights, or keep just a little glow to remind you that you're safe. This is your moment. Your peaceful pause. And now, just enjoy the story. Part 1. The Medieval Era: Anxiety as a Wandering Soul. The medieval era, when anxiety was seen as a wandering spirit. Close your eyes or let them rest as you listen. Let us go back now, far back to a time when the world moved at a different pace. A time of stone towers and wooden doors of oil lamps that burned low through the night. We are going back to the Middle Ages, to a world where anxiety was not yet named but still deeply felt. Imagine a woman standing by a narrow window looking out into a sky painted with soft gray clouds. Her breath fogs the cool glass. She does not know it yet, but she is tired, not just in her body but in her soul. She feels restless. Her heart races, sometimes without reason. Her sleep is broken. And though she cannot name what she feels, the people around her try to understand. Back then there were no psychiatrists, no therapists, no science to explain why some hearts beat faster than others. But there was belief. There was care. And there was always someone watching over the women who seemed lost inside themselves. In this quiet village tucked between rolling hills and ancient forests, life moves slowly. Women rise before dawn to light the hearth, grind herbs, knead bread, and tend to children. The days are filled with rhythm, the sound of grinding stones, the crackling fire, the lullabies sung to babies. But sometimes one of them would fall silent. She might stop humming while weaving or stare too long into the distance after supper. Her laughter would fade, replaced by a quiet worry in her eyes. And those who loved her would notice. Not because they had tools to measure stress or anxiety, but because they knew how she used to be. So they gave names to what they saw, names shaped by faith, folklore, and the wisdom passed down from mothers to daughters. They called it many things: a wandering spirit, a troubled soul, or perhaps a wandering womb. Yes, you heard that right, a wandering womb. You see, in the medieval world, doctors, if they could be called that, believed that a woman's uterus could move inside her body like a small creature. It could float up toward her chest and press on her heart, making her feel anxious. Or drift toward her throat, causing her to feel choked. And so when a woman showed signs of distress, they did not think she was stressed, they thought her womb had gone astray. Now this might sound strange to us today, even a little silly. But believe it or not, this belief came with a kind of care. Because if the womb had wandered, it needed to be guided home. So women were given warm baths scented with lavender and rosemary. They were told to drink herbal teas made from calming roots. They were wrapped in warm cloaks and encouraged to rest, not work, not rush, not push forward. And in a way, this was a kind of treatment, not based on science but rooted in compassion. Even if they misunderstood the cause, they still offered comfort. And is not that what healing often begins with? A gentle hand, a listening ear, and the simple act of letting someone rest? Most importantly, she was not left alone. In these times when modern medicine did not exist, care came from the people closest to her. From her mother, her sister, her neighbor. Someone would sit beside her during the day, keep her company while spinning wool or stitching cloth. Someone else would bring her fresh bread and honey, knowing that nourishment was also healing. At night, a child might curl beside her, their small warmth reminding her that she was still here, still needed. And if she could not sleep, someone would hum an old tune, something passed down through generations, a melody meant not to entertain but to soothe. There were no diagnoses, no therapy sessions, but there was presence. And presence, dear listener, can be more powerful than we realize. Many of these women turned to faith, not only for answers but for peace. They lit candles in quiet chapels, whispered prayers into the silence, and trusted that something was holding them when they felt like falling. Sometimes a priest or monk would visit. He would not offer pills or psychotherapy, but he would offer blessings, holy water, and words meant to remind her that she was not forgotten. That even if she felt lost, she was seen. And that too mattered. Because even back then, people knew that when the mind grows heavy, the soul needs tending just like a garden. And so they did what they could with what they had. With herbs, with songs, with silence, and with love. As you lie there tonight, I wonder, do you ever feel like your thoughts are wandering too far from home? Like your heart is racing for reasons you cannot quite explain? If so, you are not alone. And you never have been. Women before us felt this too. And though they did not have the words we have now, they still found ways to pause, to breathe, and to ask for help. And maybe that is all any of us really need sometimes, someone to sit with us in the dark and remind us that tomorrow will come. So wherever you are and whatever time it is for you right now, take another slow breath. Let your shoulders relax. And trust that just like the women before us, you are being held even in the quietest moments. The sun rose slowly over the village, its golden light slipping through the cracks of wooden shutters and casting long soft shadows across stone floors. A rooster crowed somewhere in the distance, followed by the muffled sound of hooves on dirt roads. It was a morning like many others, but for some women it came with a quiet unease. Their breath caught slightly as they stepped outside their homes into the crisp morning air. Their minds carried weight, though no one could see it. And so again the people around them began to notice. A mother might find her daughter sitting by the hearth without stirring the pot. A neighbor might see her friend staring at the river too long after fetching water. Someone would mention that she had not smiled in days, or that she startled easily when spoken to. These were signs not written in books, but known through generations of watching and caring. And so once again the village gathered what little knowledge it had to offer comfort. In those times, care often came in the form of small rituals passed down from one woman to another. Baths were drawn with warm water and herbs like lavender, sage, and rosemary. These scents filled the small rooms where anxious women sat quietly, sometimes with a child beside them or an elder nearby humming a tune that felt familiar even if they could not name it. Sometimes they were given tea made from valerian root, chamomile, or mint. The flavors were earthy and soft, meant not to cure but to calm. They were told to rest away from the noise of the market and the clatter of tools. To sit in the shade of a tree or lie beneath a blanket woven with wool from the spring shearing. And always there was someone near. A sister who braided her hair while whispering old stories. A grandmother who placed a hand on her forehead not to check for fever but to offer warmth. These gestures were not medical but deeply human. And perhaps that was enough. There were also prayers whispered in the quiet corners of homes and chapels. Women lit candles and folded their hands not because they understood anxiety in the way we do now, but because they believed in something greater than themselves. Something that listened. Something that held. Some turned to holy water sprinkled lightly on their skin or drank from cups that had been blessed. Others wore charms sewn into their sleeves or tied around their necks, small pieces of cloth filled with dried flowers and sacred words. These things did not erase fear, but they gave a sense of being protected, of being seen. In more serious cases, a healer or wise woman of the village would be called upon. She was not a doctor in the modern sense, but someone respected for her knowledge of plants and prayers. She might place warm stones wrapped in cloth on the woman's chest to ease the tightness she felt inside, or rub oil infused with calming herbs onto her temples and wrists. She would speak softly, reminding the woman that her body was not betraying her, that her spirit was only tired and needed time to breathe. She would tell her that this too would pass and that she was not alone. These treatments were not based on science but on observation and empathy. People did not know about neurotransmitters or stress hormones, but they knew how to listen, how to hold space, how to make someone feel safe. And sometimes safety was all that was needed. At night the world grew still. The fire burned low and the stars blinked gently above. Women lay beneath thick blankets stitched with care and warmed by bricks heated near the hearth. They listened to the wind rustling the leaves outside and tried to match their breath to its rhythm. Someone might sit beside them until they fell asleep, offering quiet words or simply holding their hand. Not to fix anything, just to be there. Because even then people understood that presence matters. That silence shared can be louder than noise. That sometimes healing does not come in the form of answers but in the form of company. You may be listening to this story tonight curled beneath your own blanket, feeling the same kind of worry these women once did. And if you are, I want you to know that you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply human. And humans have always felt this way, restless, worried, overwhelmed. But humans have also always found ways to care for each other even before they had names for what they felt. So take a slow breath. Let your fingers relax against the fabric of your sheets. And remember that just like those women before you, you are being held even now. Even in the dark. Even in the silence. Even when it feels like no one understands. You are not forgotten. You never have been. And tomorrow will come. Until then, let this story wrap around you like a warm cloak. Let it remind you that you are safe, that you are seen, and that you are allowed to rest. Part 2, the 17th to 18th century, Anxiety under Early Medical Care. Let us move forward now through the turning pages of time. Let the centuries pass gently beneath our feet like fallen leaves on an autumn path. We are no longer in the quiet villages of the Middle Ages. Instead, we find ourselves in a world that is beginning to change, slowly but surely. The year might be 1650 or perhaps 1720. The air smells different now. There is ink and paper. There are books stacked high in wooden cabinets. And there are men in long coats with spectacles balanced on their noses writing carefully by candlelight. This is the age of early science. Of thinkers and scholars who begin to ask new questions about the body and the mind. And for women who feel anxious, restless, or overwhelmed, there are changes too, small ones at first but meaningful all the same. In this era, anxiety begins to take on names. Not quite the ones we use today, but words that try to explain what was once thought to be wandering wombs or troubled spirits. Now they call it melancholy, or vapors, or nervous disorders. These were still imperfect labels, but they marked the beginning of something important, the idea that anxiety could be understood, not just endured. Imagine a woman sitting in a room lined with shelves filled with leather-bound books. She wears a simple dress with lace around the collar. Her hands rest lightly on her lap, and though she appears calm, her breath comes a little too fast. Her eyes dart often toward the window as if expecting someone to arrive. She has come to visit a physician. He is not a doctor in the modern sense, but one of the few people in town who has studied medicine and owns instruments made of polished brass. His voice is gentle when he speaks. He does not scold her for feeling uneasy. He does not tell her to simply work harder or pray more. Instead, he listens. He asks how she sleeps, whether her appetite is steady, if certain places or thoughts make her heart race more than others. He writes notes in neat cursive and then offers her tea brewed from lemon balm and valerian root. There is no diagnosis yet, no prescription in the way we know them. But there is attention. There is care. And that matters. Outside the window, a horse-drawn carriage passes over cobblestone streets. A child laughs somewhere nearby. And inside this quiet room, a woman feels seen for the first time in weeks. In many homes during this time, women began to speak more openly about how they felt. They wrote letters to one another, sharing stories of sleepless nights and racing hearts. Some kept journals where they described their moods and the weather outside their windows. Writing became a kind of therapy, not because it cured anything, but because it gave shape to feelings that had been hard to name. And in this century, women also found comfort in nature, in gardens full of lavender and chamomile, in long walks along tree-lined paths. Doctors sometimes prescribed these things not as luxuries but as remedies. They believed that fresh air and green spaces could help calm a troubled mind. So a woman might spend her afternoon strolling beneath tall oaks. She would watch the sunlight dance across the grass and listen to birds calling to one another. She would sit on a bench carved from wood and close her eyes, letting the breeze carry away some of her worries. These moments may seem small, but they were precious. Because even without modern medicine, people were learning that healing did not always come in the form of pills or potions. Sometimes it came in the form of silence, of space, of permission to slow down. In this century, too, there was a growing belief that women needed protection from overstimulation. They were advised to avoid reading too much, especially novels that stirred the imagination. Too much thinking or dreaming was thought to disturb the delicate balance of the mind. Instead, they were encouraged to engage in quiet activities. Sewing, knitting, painting soft landscapes with watercolors, playing music on the harpsichord or clavichord, slow melodies that seemed to stretch out into the evening. There were no smartphones or electric lights. No endless scrolling or buzzing notifications. Life moved slower. And for those who felt anxious, this slowness was a gift. Evenings were spent by firelight, with family gathered close, with stories told in hushed voices, with blankets wrapped around shoulders and warm drinks held between hands. It was not perfect. There were still misunderstandings, still stigma, still a lack of real treatment. But there was also progress. A shift toward seeing anxiety not as weakness but as something real. Something that deserved compassion. And so women were allowed to rest. To retreat. To say no. They were not pushed to keep going when their bodies and minds cried for pause. Instead, they were told to lie down. To drink tea. To breathe deeply. And sometimes that was enough. As you listen to this story tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in that quiet garden. In that candlelit room. In that peaceful moment beneath the trees. You may not live in this century, but you still deserve the same gentleness. The same understanding. The same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools. More knowledge. More ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone. That you are not broken. That you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Rest now. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across the sky. Let your body sink deeper into your bed. And if sleep finds you before the story ends, do not worry. It will wait for you. Because this is not a story that rushes. It is a story that walks slowly beside you. A story that sits with you in the quiet moments. Let us stay here for a while longer in this quiet century where the world begins to shift ever so gently beneath our feet. And this time there were no hospitals filled with fluorescent lights or doctors in white coats checking blood pressure on digital screens. Instead, there were small rooms lined with wooden shelves and glass bottles labeled in elegant handwriting. There were physicians who carried leather-bound notebooks and wore wigs powdered with flour. And there were women who sat across from them not as patients but as people whose feelings were finally being acknowledged. Imagine again the same woman we met earlier. She has returned to the physician's home office this time, bringing with her a small notebook of her own. It is filled with sketches of clouds and short sentences about how she feels each morning when she wakes up. She writes that some days are better than others. That sometimes she feels like herself again, even if only for an hour or two. The doctor listens carefully. He does not interrupt. He does not rush. Instead, he nods slowly and says something that surprises her. You are not imagining this. You are not making it up. What you feel is real. And it is not your fault. These words may seem simple, but they carry weight. They settle into her chest like a warm hand placed gently over her heart. For the first time in a long while, she feels understood. Outside the window, rain begins to fall in soft drops against the roof. A kettle whistles softly in the kitchen. And inside this room the woman exhales deeply, perhaps for the first time in weeks. In many homes during this time, women began to find comfort in routines designed to bring calm. Doctors would often recommend daily rituals meant to restore balance to both body and mind. These included waking at sunrise, drinking warm milk before bed, and walking in the garden every afternoon. There was no science behind these recommendations yet, not in the way we understand it now, but there was wisdom in the rhythm they created. A steady beat to follow when everything else felt uncertain. So a woman might begin her day by opening the shutters to let in the morning light. She would sip tea sweetened with honey while listening to birdsong outside her window. She would take time to brush her hair, slowly watching the strokes in the mirror as if reminding herself that she was still here. Still present. She might spend part of the afternoon reading a book written in delicate script or writing letters to friends who lived far away. Her handwriting would be careful and slow, as if each word carried more meaning than usual. And in the evening she would sit near the fireplace wrapped in a shawl stitched by her mother or sister. She would listen to the crackling fire and allow her thoughts to drift without judgment. Some nights she would fall asleep before the flames had fully died down. It was not a cure, but it was care. And sometimes care is the beginning of healing. In this century, too, there was growing awareness that anxiety could be passed down through families. Not just through bloodlines, but through habits, ways of thinking, and patterns of worry. So mothers began to speak more openly with their daughters. They taught them how to recognize the signs in themselves and how to ask for help when they needed it. They did not use the words mental health or emotional well-being, but they knew what it meant to carry a heavy heart, to feel tired without reason, to wake up with a sense of dread clinging to the edges of their minds. And so they passed on quiet wisdom. Drink tea before bed. Sit in the sun when you can. Talk to someone when the silence becomes too loud. These were not grand solutions, but they were steps toward understanding. Some families kept small boxes filled with dried herbs collected from their gardens. Lavender for sleep. Chamomile for calm. Mint for digestion, which they believed played a role in how one felt emotionally. When a daughter seemed overwhelmed, her mother might offer her a cup of warm infusion made from these plants, or suggest a walk together through the fields where the wind blew gently and the sky stretched wide above them. These moments were small but meaningful, because they reminded young women that they were not alone, that their feelings mattered, that they were allowed to take up space even when they did not know how to explain what they were going through. Doctors of the time also began to notice that anxiety often appeared alongside other conditions. Women who experienced frequent headaches, stomach pains, or fatigue were more likely to report feeling uneasy or restless. Though they did not yet understand the connection between body and mind, they began to treat the whole person rather than focusing only on physical symptoms. They asked questions about dreams and emotions. They considered how a woman slept and what she ate. They paid attention to the weather and how it affected her mood. This holistic approach, though still limited by the knowledge of the time, laid the foundation for future generations to build upon. And so in this century, women were given more permission to rest, to retreat, to say no. They were not expected to push through exhaustion or hide their struggles. Instead, they were encouraged to listen to their bodies, to pause when needed, to seek out places that brought them peace. Sometimes that place was a quiet room filled with books. Sometimes it was a bench beneath a willow tree. Sometimes it was simply the presence of someone who stayed beside them in silence. Because in this century, people began to understand something very important: that healing does not always come from action. Sometimes it comes from stillness. As you lie there tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this time. If you can imagine sitting in that quiet room by the fire. If you can feel the warmth of a blanket around your shoulders and the gentle hum of a lullaby sung by someone who cares. You may live in a different era, but you deserve the same gentleness, the same understanding, the same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools, more knowledge, more ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone, that you are not broken, that you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Part 3, the 19th century, anxiety within the home. Let us move forward once more through time. Let the pages of history turn gently beneath our fingertips. We are now stepping into the 19th century, a world that feels both familiar and distant. There is gaslight flickering behind lace curtains. There are ticking clocks on mantelpieces. There are heavy velvet drapes drawn tightly across windows to keep out the cold and perhaps also the noise of the outside world. In this century, women who felt anxious were often told they needed rest. Not just a nap or a quiet evening, but complete withdrawal from the demands of daily life. They were encouraged to stay indoors, to lie down more often, to avoid stressful conversations and overstimulating activities. It was not always done out of fear or misunderstanding. Sometimes it came from a place of genuine care. People were beginning to recognize that the mind could be fragile, that too much pressure could make it tremble. And so they tried to create spaces where women could feel safe again. Imagine a woman sitting in a softly lit room lined with bookshelves and filled with the scent of beeswax candles. She wears a long cotton dress with buttons running up the front. Her hair is loosely pinned at the back of her head. She holds a cup of warm milk in her hands, letting its heat seep into her fingers. Outside, the wind rustles against the window panes. A horse carriage passes by slowly. And inside this home she is allowed to simply be. No expectations. No rush. Just stillness. Her family understands that she has been feeling overwhelmed lately. That some mornings she wakes with a tightness in her chest. That some evenings she finds herself staring into the distance without realizing how much time has passed. And so they give her what she needs most: space, time, quiet companionship. They do not speak of mental health in the way we do now. But they know how to love gently. How to sit beside someone without needing to fix them. How to offer warmth when words fall short. Sometimes her sister brings her tea in the afternoon. Sometimes her mother sits with her while knitting soft wool socks. Sometimes a child curls up beside her reading aloud from a storybook in a small voice. These moments may seem ordinary, but they carry a kind of healing all their own. Because in this century people believed that the home could be a place of restoration. That within its walls a woman could find peace, even if only for a little while. Doctors of the time began to write about the importance of a calm environment. They recommended regular routines. Gentle exercise like walking in the garden. Fresh air. Warm baths. And above all, rest. Some women were prescribed what was called the rest cure, a treatment that involved weeks or even months of doing very little. No housework. No social visits. No reading. No writing. Just lying in bed drinking nourishing broths and allowing the body and mind to reset. While this approach would later be criticized for being overly restrictive, it did have one important benefit: it gave women permission to stop. To step away from the expectations placed upon them. To listen to themselves without distraction. And sometimes that was exactly what they needed. In many homes during this time, women were encouraged to engage in soothing daily rituals. They might wake early to drink herbal infusions made from lemon balm and passion flower. They might spend part of the day tending to indoor plants or arranging fresh flowers in porcelain vases. They were told to take long walks when possible, alone or with someone who understood silence. They were reminded to breathe deeply before bedtime and to light candles to soften the darkness. There were no smartphones here. No constant buzzing of notifications. No endless scrolling through images that made them feel inadequate. Instead, there was the slow turning of book pages. The rhythmic sound of a sewing needle passing through fabric. The gentle crackling of firewood burning in the hearth. Life moved at a different pace. One that felt less hurried. Less demanding. More forgiving. And for those who struggled with anxiety, this slowness was a gift. Evening brought with it a sense of soft closure. The lamps were turned low. The windows were closed to keep out the night chill. And families gathered together in shared warmth. A woman might sit near the fireplace wrapped in a shawl stitched with care. She would watch the flames dance and listen to the quiet murmur of conversation around her. She would allow her thoughts to drift without trying to catch them. She would not be asked to explain how she felt. She would not be expected to smile if she wasn't ready. Instead, she would simply be held by the presence of those who loved her. This kind of acceptance was rare and precious. As you listen to this story tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this quiet home. If you can imagine the weight of a thick blanket around your shoulders, the hush of a candlelit room, the comfort of someone nearby who does not ask anything of you. You may live in a different time, but you deserve the same gentleness, the same understanding, the same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools, more knowledge, more ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone, that you are not broken, that you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Let us return again to this quiet century where the home became a sanctuary for women who carried invisible burdens. Here in the 1800s, the world was changing. Railroads stretched across lands. Cities grew taller with smoke curling into the sky. But within the walls of many homes there remained a kind of stillness. A softness. A belief that rest could heal what medicine had not yet learned to name. In this time, women who struggled with anxiety were often encouraged to retreat inward. Not out of shame or dismissal, but as an act of care. Doctors began to speak more openly about the effects of overwork on the female mind. They wrote about how constant responsibilities and emotional strain could wear down even the strongest spirit. And so the remedy they offered was simple yet profound: slow down. Not just for a few hours. Not just after dinner. But for days. Weeks. Sometimes even months. A woman might be advised to leave behind the noise of city life and spend time in the countryside. There she would wake to birdsong instead of factory bells. She would walk barefoot through dew-covered grass each morning. She would watch the sun rise over fields untouched by smoke or steel. She would read poetry by the window. She would write letters in long looping script describing how the air smelled after rain. And when words felt too heavy, she would simply sit and listen to the wind in the trees or the soft hum of bees among wildflowers. There were no alarms here. No rush to finish anything. Only the gentle rhythm of nature guiding her back to herself. Back in the city, some women found peace in their own homes. Their rooms were filled with soft light from oil lamps and the scent of lavender sachets tucked beneath their pillows. Curtains were drawn during the day to create a sense of cocooning, a way to separate themselves from the world outside without feeling isolated. They were given warm baths scented with rose petals and chamomile. Their meals were light and nourishing, bowls of broth made slowly with herbs gathered fresh. They drank infusions of lemon balm and mint to calm restless thoughts before sleep. And most importantly, they were allowed to do nothing. No expectations. No demands. Just space to breathe. In many families during this time, it became common for someone close, a mother, sister, or cousin, to stay with a woman who needed time to recover. They did not offer advice unless asked. They did not try to fix what was broken. Instead, they simply sat beside her while she rested, while she stared out the window, while she fell asleep mid-conversation. Sometimes they held her hand. Sometimes they read aloud from favorite books. Sometimes they said nothing at all. But their presence mattered deeply. Because in a world that was becoming faster and louder, there was still room for slowness, for silence, for tenderness. Doctors of the time also began to recognize the value of creative expression and easing anxiety. Women were encouraged to paint soft landscapes with watercolors, to sew delicate embroidery patterns onto pillowcases, to play gentle melodies on the piano in the late afternoon when the light turned golden. Music especially became a source of comfort. Some played simple tunes passed down through generations. Others listened to recordings brought home in small wooden boxes, early gramophones that played music like a whisper from another time. These activities were not seen as luxuries. They were considered forms of healing, ways to channel emotions that could not always be spoken. And so a woman might find herself tracing the outline of a leaf with charcoal pencil, or stitching tiny flowers along the edge of a handkerchief, or humming along to a song that reminded her of childhood. Each movement was slow, each moment intentional. There was no hurry here. As evening arrived, she would prepare for bed with a ritual meant to bring peace. She might soak her feet in warm water infused with sage. She might drink a cup of milk sweetened with honey. She would change into soft cotton nightclothes and brush her hair slowly in front of the mirror. Then she would lie beneath layers of blankets stitched with care. The fire would burn low. The windows would remain slightly open to let in the cool night air. And somewhere nearby a clock would tick softly, reminding her that time was moving forward, but gently. Outside, the stars blinked above rooftops and chimneys. Inside, she closed her eyes knowing that tomorrow would come, but tonight belonged to rest. It was not a perfect solution. It did not erase every worry. But it gave her something valuable, permission to pause. And sometimes that is enough. As you listen to this story tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this quiet room. If you can imagine the warmth of a blanket around your shoulders, the hush of candlelight, the comfort of someone nearby who does not ask anything of you. You may live in a different time, but you deserve the same gentleness, the same understanding, the same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools, more knowledge, more ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone, that you are not broken, that you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Part 4. The early 20th century, anxiety meets psychology. Let us step gently into the early years of the 20th century, a time when the world began to turn its attention inward. The air was filled with the scent of ink and paper. Cities were growing taller and faster than ever before. Trains moved people between towns like whispers passing from one ear to another. And inside quiet rooms lined with books and soft lamplight, something new was taking shape. People were beginning to understand that the mind could be just as fragile as the body. That emotions were not simply feelings but forces that shaped how we lived, how we loved, and how we saw ourselves. And for women who had long felt restless, worried, or overwhelmed, there was now a new kind of listening. Imagine a woman walking through the door of a small office tucked away on a tree-lined street. She wears a hat with a ribbon tied loosely beneath her chin. Her coat is buttoned all the way up even though it is not cold. She steps inside and finds a chair facing a man seated behind a desk. He does not wear a white coat. He does not carry a stethoscope. But he carries something else: patience, curiosity, a willingness to sit quietly while she tries to find the words for what she feels. She tells him about mornings when she wakes too early with her heart already racing. About afternoons when thoughts seem to circle endlessly in her mind without resolution. About evenings when she sits by the window watching the sky change color and wonders why everything feels so heavy. He listens. Not to fix her. Not to hurry her along. Just to hear her. And then he says something simple. You are not alone in this. Those 4 words settle over her like a warm blanket on a cool night. They do not erase the weight she carries, but they soften its edges. For the first time in a long while she feels understood. In this century, psychology begins to take form. It is still young. Still learning. But it asks questions no one has asked before. What happens when we bury our sadness? How do childhood memories shape the way we feel today? Why do some hearts beat faster than others even when nothing dangerous is near? Doctors begin to write about anxiety not as madness but as meaning. Not as weakness but as response. Not as something to be ashamed of but as something to be explored. And so therapy becomes a place where women can speak freely, not only about symptoms but about themselves. About dreams they once had. About fears they never dared name. About the way silence can sometimes hold more truth than words. Some come week after week tracing the lines of their past with careful fingers. Others read books written by those who try to explain what they feel. And many find comfort in knowing that they are not the only ones who have felt this way. Outside these offices, life continues its rhythm. Women walk through parks wearing gloves against the morning chill. They write letters with fountain pens. They gather in parlors with friends sipping tea and sharing stories in hushed voices. But now there is also a new awareness that healing does not always come from action. Sometimes it comes from simply being heard. And so women begin to take care of themselves in new ways. Some start journals where they write down thoughts that feel too heavy to hold inside. Others learn breathing techniques designed to calm the nervous system. Some attend lectures on the power of thought and emotion. And many simply allow themselves to rest, not out of weakness but as an act of self-respect. There is no rushing here. No demand for instant results. Just the steady unfolding of understanding. In homes during this time, women are encouraged to create spaces where they can retreat. A corner with a comfortable chair and a soft blanket. A window seat where sunlight spills in during the afternoon. A small table where they can write or sip tea while listening to the quiet around them. They are told to pay attention to their bodies, to notice when their breath becomes shallow, when their shoulders rise toward their ears without meaning to, when their sleep grows lighter and more restless. And when these signs appear, they are reminded to pause, to breathe, to ask for help if needed. Because in this century people begin to understand that healing is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent. Sometimes it is as simple as allowing yourself to be exactly where you are. As evening falls, imagine one of these women preparing for bed. She lights a single lamp near her mirror. She brushes her hair slowly, watching her reflection soften with each stroke. She drinks a cup of warm milk sweetened with honey. She steps beneath thick blankets stitched with care and lets the weight of the fabric remind her that she is safe. Somewhere nearby a clock ticks gently, marking the passing of time. Outside, the wind moves through branches, creating a sound like distant waves. She closes her eyes. And for the first time in days, perhaps even weeks, she allows herself to sink fully into the moment. No need to rush. No need to fix anything. Just this quiet hour. This gentle release. This permission to rest. Now picture another woman sitting by the fire reading a book about the mind. She turns the pages slowly, letting each sentence settle before moving on. She underlines a line that speaks directly to her. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is your signal. Your invitation to slow down and listen. She closes the book and looks into the flames. Something shifts inside her, not suddenly but softly. Like snow falling without making a sound. In another city, a woman walks slowly through a garden at dusk. The sky is painted in shades of lavender and gold. She listens to the crunch of gravel beneath her feet, feels the cool air against her skin, and for a few moments she forgets to worry. Because right now she is simply walking, simply breathing, simply existing. And that is enough. In this century, people begin to understand that healing does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a warm bath drawn after a long day. Sometimes it looks like a letter written to someone far away. Sometimes it looks like choosing to stay home instead of pretending everything is fine. It is not easy work, but it is honest work. And women begin to do it. Quietly. Gently. With grace. As you lie there tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this time. If you can feel the warmth of a blanket around your shoulders. The hush of a candlelit room. The comfort of someone nearby who does not ask anything of you. You may live in a different era, but you deserve the same gentleness. The same understanding. The same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools. More knowledge. More ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone. That you are not broken. That you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Let us stay here for a while longer in this quiet century where understanding begins to bloom like the first flowers of spring. In the early 1900s, women who felt anxious were no longer seen only as fragile or overly emotional. They were beginning to be understood, not just by doctors, but by themselves. For the first time in history, they were given words for what they felt. And with those words came a kind of relief. Imagine a woman sitting at her desk in a small room filled with soft light. She holds a book titled On the Psychology of the Mind and turns its pages slowly. Her fingers trace the inked lines as she reads about how thoughts can shape emotions, about how memories can echo through time without ever being spoken aloud. She closes the book gently and looks out the window. The world outside moves quickly, people walking with purpose, carriages rolling over cobblestone streets, voices rising and falling like waves on the shore. But inside this room, everything feels still, as if time has slowed down just enough for her to catch her breath. There is no rushing here. No pressure to explain herself fully. Just the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat reminding her that she is present, that she is allowed to take up space even when she does not feel certain about everything inside her. In many homes during this time, books about the mind began to appear on shelves once reserved for religious texts and poetry. Women read about dreams and fears and the way emotions could hide beneath the surface waiting to be noticed. They wrote letters to one another sharing what they had learned. Some kept notebooks filled with reflections on how they felt each morning when they woke and each evening before sleep arrived. This was not therapy in the modern sense, but it was something close, a quiet turning inward, a willingness to sit with discomfort instead of pretending it did not exist. And sometimes that was enough. Doctors of the time also began to write about the importance of relationships. They recognized that loneliness could deepen anxiety. That feeling unseen could make worry grow stronger. And so they encouraged women to speak, not only to professionals but to those closest to them. A mother might sit beside her daughter and ask how she truly felt. A sister might offer to walk with her in silence through the garden. A friend might write a letter saying simply, "I see you. I hear you. You are not alone." These moments may seem small, but they carried great weight. Because healing often comes not from grand gestures but from quiet acts of love. Some women found comfort in nature, in long walks through fields covered in wildflowers, and sitting beneath trees whose leaves whispered in the wind. Doctors prescribed these things not as luxuries but as remedies. They believed that fresh air and green spaces could help calm a troubled mind. So a woman might spend her afternoon strolling beneath tall oaks. She would watch the sunlight dance across the grass and listen to birds calling to one another. She would sit on a bench carved from wood and close her eyes, letting the breeze carry away some of her worries. These moments may seem simple, but they were precious. Because even without modern medicine, people were learning that healing did not always come in the form of pills or potions. Sometimes it came in the form of silence, of space, of permission to slow down. As the years passed, more women began to seek out professional help. Therapy became a place where they could speak freely, not only about symptoms but about their lives, their hopes, their regrets, their moments of joy buried beneath layers of worry. Some met with doctors week after week, tracing the lines of their past with careful fingers. Others attended lectures on the power of thought and emotion. And many simply allowed themselves to rest, not out of weakness but as an act of self-respect. There was no rushing here. No demand for instant results. Just the steady unfolding of understanding. In homes during this time, women were encouraged to create spaces where they could retreat. A corner with a comfortable chair and a soft blanket. A window seat where sunlight spilled in during the afternoon. A small table where they could write or sip tea while listening to the quiet around them. They were told to pay attention to their bodies, to notice when their breath became shallow, when their shoulders rose toward their ears without meaning to, when their sleep grew lighter and more restless. And when these signs appeared, they were reminded to pause, to breathe, to ask for help if needed. Because in this century, people began to understand that healing is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent. Sometimes it is as simple as allowing yourself to be exactly where you are. Now picture a woman preparing for bed in the late hours of the evening. She lights a single lamp near her mirror. She brushes her hair slowly, watching her reflection soften with each stroke. She drinks a cup of warm milk sweetened with honey. She steps beneath thick blankets stitched with care and lets the weight of the fabric remind her that she is safe. Somewhere nearby, a clock ticks gently, marking the passing of time. Outside, the wind moves through branches, creating a sound like distant waves. She closes her eyes. And for the first time in days, perhaps even weeks, she allows herself to sink fully into the moment. No need to rush. No need to fix anything. Just this quiet hour. This gentle release. This permission to rest. In another city, another woman sits by the fire reading a book about the mind. She turns the pages slowly, letting each sentence settle before moving on. She underlines a line that speaks directly to her. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is your signal. Your invitation to slow down and listen. She closes the book and looks into the flames. Something shifts inside her, not suddenly, but softly. Like snow falling without making a sound. In yet another home, a woman writes in her journal by candlelight. She describes how she felt that day, the moments of worry, yes, but also the moments of peace. She writes about the way the sunlight looked through the window that morning. About the way her sister smiled at her without needing to say anything. When she finishes, she places the notebook carefully on the shelf beside other books she has filled over the years. Each one a piece of her journey. Each one a reminder that she has been listening to herself all along. Outside, the night stretches wide and deep. Inside, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. Stillness. Acceptance. Hope. As the century moves forward, more women begin to speak openly about how they feel. They share stories not only in private letters but in public forums. They attend gatherings where others listen without judgment. They learn that healing does not have to be done alone. And slowly, quietly, the world begins to change. Because now there are more voices. More understanding. More ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, there is more compassion. As you lie there tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this time. If you can feel the warmth of a blanket around your shoulders. The hush of a candlelit room. The comfort of someone nearby who does not ask anything of you. You may live in a different era, but you deserve the same gentleness. The same understanding. The same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools. More knowledge. More ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone. That you are not broken. That you are simply human, walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Part 5, The Modern Era, Anxiety Shared and Understood. Let us step forward once more through time, gently as if walking barefoot on warm sand. We are now entering the modern era, a world filled with soft glowing screens and voices that reach across oceans in an instant. Here in this time we no longer sit by candlelight or listen to the ticking of wooden clocks. Instead, we carry small devices in our pockets that connect us to millions of others. We scroll through stories shared from faraway places. We read words written by those who feel just like us, restless, worried, overwhelmed, but still reaching out. And for women who have long carried anxiety quietly inside themselves, this century brings something new. Understanding. Not just from doctors or books, but from each other. In this world, a woman might wake to the gentle hum of her phone reminding her it is time to rise. She stretches beneath soft sheets and listens to the quiet of the morning. Outside her window, birds call to one another. A breeze moves through the trees. And somewhere nearby, a coffee machine begins to brew its familiar scent into the air. She does not rush. Not yet. Instead, she sits for a moment with her cup in hand and scrolls through a message board where others speak openly about how they feel. Someone writes about waking with worry pressing against their chest. Another shares how silence sometimes feels louder than noise. And someone else says simply, "I know what you mean." These words may seem ordinary, but they carry weight. They remind her that she is not alone. That her feelings are real. That she is allowed to speak them aloud. In many homes during this time, women begin to share more freely about their mental health. They talk about therapy sessions over breakfast. They recommend meditation apps to friends. They post honest reflections on social media, not for likes but for connection. They say things like, "Some days are harder than others. I'm learning how to slow down. It's okay to not be okay." And these words ripple outward, touching others who need to hear them. Doctors now understand anxiety in ways once unimaginable. There are medications designed to ease racing thoughts. Therapies built on years of research. Tools created to help people breathe more deeply and sleep more peacefully. But even with all this knowledge, the most powerful healing still comes from something simple. Being seen. Being heard. Being held, even if only in words. So a woman might sit in a therapist's office surrounded by soft light and the scent of lavender candles. She speaks slowly about how she has always felt different, like she was born with a heart that beats faster than others. Like she notices every shift in mood, like she carries the weight of conversations long after they end. Her therapist nods gently. She does not rush her. She does not try to fix anything. Instead, she asks questions meant to guide her inward. When did you first notice this feeling? What helps when it becomes too much? Who do you feel safe enough to share this with? And with each question, something shifts. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. But softly, like fog lifting from a lake at dawn. Outside, this office life continues its rhythm. Women walk through city streets wearing headphones that play calming music. They attend online workshops about self-care. They gather in virtual spaces where they can speak without fear of judgment. There are no velvet curtains here. No oil lamps or handwritten letters. But there is still warmth. Still care. Still a desire to create space for those who feel unseen. And so women learn to rest differently now. They set boundaries. They turn off notifications. They allow themselves to log off and lie still beneath blankets stitched with comfort. They practice breathing exercises before bed. They use guided meditations to calm their minds. They place crystals beside their pillows and light candles scented with chamomile and sage. They wear comfortable clothes. They drink herbal tea. They curl up with books that do not demand attention, only presence. And they give themselves permission to stop. Not because they are broken. Not because they are weak. But because they are human. And humans need rest. As evening arrives, imagine one of these women preparing for bed. She dims the lights around her room. She closes her laptop and places her phone on silent. She steps into soft pajamas and wraps herself in a blanket that smells faintly of lavender. She lies down and lets the mattress hold her weight. She breathes deeply in and out, in and out. No need to rush. No need to push forward. Just this quiet hour. This gentle release. This permission to rest. Now picture another woman scrolling through a wellness blog before sleep. She reads about grounding techniques, ways to bring herself back to the present when her mind drifts too far. She tries one now, naming 5 things she can see, 4 she can touch, 3 she can hear, 2 she can smell, 1 she can taste. And slowly her body relaxes. Because even in this fast-moving world there are still ways to slow down. Ways to come home to yourself. Ways to find peace. In another part of the world, a woman joins an online support group. She types a message hesitantly at first, then presses send. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who struggles this way. Minutes pass. Then replies begin to appear. You're not alone. I felt that too. Thank you for sharing. And for the first time in a long while she feels understood. Because now we have more than medicine. We have each other. We have voices that travel across screens and time zones. We have stories whispered into the night. And we have the quiet understanding that some hearts beat faster than others, not because they are broken but because they feel deeply. As you lie there tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this time. If you can feel the warmth of a blanket around your shoulders. The hush of a candlelit room. The comfort of someone nearby who does not ask anything of you. You may live in a different era, but you deserve the same gentleness. The same understanding. The same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools. More knowledge. More ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone. That you are not broken. That you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Let us stay here for a while longer in this time where connection comes not only from face-to-face conversations but from glowing screens that hum softly beside our beds. In this era, women no longer have to carry their anxiety in silence. They do not have to wait for a doctor's appointment or sit alone with their thoughts until they feel too heavy to hold. Instead, they can reach out, instantly, to others who understand. A woman might wake before sunrise and open an app on her phone. It plays a soft melody as she begins a guided meditation designed to calm her nervous system. She follows the voice gently leading her through each breath. In and out, in and out. Outside her window, the sky is just beginning to turn pink. A bird calls from a nearby branch. And inside her room, she allows herself to be still, not rushing into the day but easing into it like stepping slowly into warm water. There are no alarms here. No pressure to be productive right away. Just this quiet moment of presence. Later she might write in a journal, not one made of paper and ink but a digital space where she shares how she feels without fear of judgment. She writes about mornings when her heart races before she even opens her eyes. About evenings when she scrolls endlessly through images trying to find something that makes her feel less empty. And then she reads the comments beneath her post. I know that feeling. Thank you for saying this. You're not alone. These words may seem simple, but they settle deep in her chest like warmth after standing too long in the cold. For so long she thought she was the only one who felt this way. Now she sees that she is not. Because now we have more than medicine. We have each other. We have voices that travel across time zones and languages. We have stories whispered into the night. And we have the quiet understanding that some hearts beat faster than others, not because they are broken but because they feel deeply. In many homes during this time, women begin to build routines designed not for productivity but for peace. They wake slowly. They drink warm lemon water before reaching for their phones. They stretch their bodies gently before stepping into the day. They take time to notice things, the way sunlight moves across the floor, the sound of leaves rustling outside their windows, the scent of coffee brewing in the early hours. They allow themselves to move at their own pace, not rushing simply because the world expects them to. Some light candles scented with lavender and eucalyptus. Others play soft music as they prepare breakfast. Some step outside barefoot onto grass just to feel the earth beneath their feet. These moments may seem small, but they carry meaning. Because healing does not always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes in the form of stillness, of slowness, of permission to rest. Doctors now understand that anxiety is not a flaw. It is not a weakness. It is not something to be ashamed of. Instead, it is a signal, a message from the body telling us that we need to slow down, that we need to listen. So women are encouraged to set boundaries, to say no without guilt, to log off when they need space, to create environments where they feel safe, both physically and emotionally. They learn to recognize their triggers, to name what helps, to ask for support when they need it most. And most importantly, they learn to be gentle with themselves. Not because they are fragile, but because they are human. As evening arrives, imagine one of these women preparing for bed. She turns off the lights around her room. She places her phone on silent and sets it aside. She steps into soft pajamas and wraps herself in a blanket that smells faintly of chamomile and mint. She lies down and lets the mattress hold her weight. She breathes deeply in and out, in and out. No need to rush. No need to push forward. Just this quiet hour. This gentle release. This permission to rest. Now picture another woman scrolling through a wellness blog before sleep. She reads about grounding techniques, ways to bring herself back to the present when her mind drifts too far. She tries one now, naming 5 things she can see, 4 she can touch, 3 she can hear, 2 she can smell, 1 she can taste. And slowly her body relaxes. Because even in this fast-moving world there are still ways to slow down. Ways to come home to yourself. Ways to find peace. In another part of the world, a woman joins an online support group. She types a message hesitantly at first, then presses send. Sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who struggles this way. Minutes pass. Then replies begin to appear. You're not alone. I felt that too. Thank you for sharing. And for the first time in a long while she feels understood. Because now we have more than medicine. We have each other. We have voices that travel across screens and time zones. We have stories whispered into the night. And we have the quiet understanding that some hearts beat faster than others, not because they are broken but because they feel deeply. In this century, women also begin to explore new ways of healing beyond traditional therapy. Some try yoga to reconnect with their bodies. Others experiment with art as a way to express what words cannot fully capture. Some turn to nature, walking barefoot through forests or sitting by the ocean listening to waves crash against the shore. They discover that healing does not always come in one form. It can be found in movement, in creativity, in stillness. And sometimes it is simply the act of allowing oneself to be exactly as they are, tired, anxious, overwhelmed, and still worthy of care. Some women attend workshops on emotional resilience. Others listen to podcasts that speak directly to their struggles. Many read books written by those who have walked similar paths, guides filled not with rigid rules but with gentle reminders. One line stands out to many. You don't have to fix yourself. You just have to show up. And that becomes a kind of mantra. Because healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about learning to live more peacefully with who you already are. As the night deepens, imagine a woman lying beneath layers of blankets stitched with comfort. She listens to the quiet hum of the world outside, the distant sound of wind moving through trees, the occasional chirp of a night bird, the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat reminding her that she is alive. She closes her eyes. And for the first time in days, perhaps even weeks, she allows herself to sink fully into the moment. No need to rush. No need to fix anything. Just this quiet hour. This gentle release. This permission to rest. In another city, a woman sits by the fire reading a book about the mind. She turns the pages slowly, letting each sentence settle before moving on. She underlines a line that speaks directly to her. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is your signal. Your invitation to slow down and listen. She closes the book and looks into the flames. Something shifts inside her, not suddenly but softly. Like snow falling without making a sound. In yet another home, a woman writes in her journal by candlelight. She describes how she felt that day, the moments of worry, yes, but also the moments of peace. She writes about the way the sunlight looked through the window that morning. About the way her sister smiled at her without needing to say anything. When she finishes, she places the notebook carefully on the shelf beside other books she has filled over the years. Each one a piece of her journey. Each one a reminder that she has been listening to herself all along. Outside, the night stretches wide and deep. Inside, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. Stillness. Acceptance. Hope. As the century moves forward, more women begin to speak openly about how they feel. They share stories not only in private letters but in public forums. They attend gatherings where others listen without judgment. They learn that healing does not have to be done alone. And slowly, quietly, the world begins to change. Because now there are more voices, more understanding, more ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, there is more compassion. As you lie there tonight, wherever you are, I wonder if you can picture yourself in this time. If you can feel the warmth of a blanket around your shoulders, the hush of a candlelit room, the comfort of someone nearby who does not ask anything of you. You may live in a different era, but you deserve the same gentleness. the same understanding, the same permission to slow down. Because anxiety has always existed. It has always touched the hearts of women. But now we have more tools, more knowledge, more ways to reach out and ask for help. And most importantly, we have each other. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are not alone, that you are not broken, that you are simply human walking through a difficult moment. Take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. And remember that just like the women before you, you are allowed to rest. Let us sit together for a moment longer in this quiet space we have created. The night is deep now. The world outside has grown still. Perhaps the wind moves gently through trees. Perhaps a distant street lamp hums softly against the dark. And perhaps you are lying beneath warm blankets feeling the slow rhythm of your own breath. You have traveled with me through centuries, from candlelit rooms and wooden shutters to glowing screens and soft voices that reach across time zones. You have walked beside women who carried anxiety long before it had a name. Women who were misunderstood. Women who were cared for in ways both strange and beautiful. You have seen how anxiety was once seen as a wandering spirit. How it was believed to come from a restless womb or a troubled soul. You have sat beside those who drank herbal teas by firelight. Who rested for weeks under the care of someone who simply stayed nearby. Who wrote letters filled with worry and hope. You have listened to the quiet turning of pages in early psychology offices. Watched women begin to speak openly about what they felt. Seen them take small steps toward healing, not because they were broken but because they were human. And now here we are in the present, where anxiety is no longer hidden away. Where women share their stories freely. Where they build routines designed not for productivity but for peace. Where they light candles scented with lavender and mint. Where they remind each other that it is okay to rest. You may be one of these women. Perhaps you have spent your day navigating meetings, emails, and responsibilities. Or perhaps you have spent it quietly at home listening to the sound of rain against the window. Either way, you are here now. Listening. Breathing. Letting go. And that alone is enough. Because healing does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like choosing to lie down instead of pushing forward. Sometimes it looks like opening a book instead of scrolling endlessly. Sometimes it looks like saying nothing at all and simply allowing yourself to be exactly where you are. You may not feel completely at peace tonight. That is okay. Healing is not something that happens in a single night. It is a slow unfolding. A gentle turning inward. A willingness to listen to yourself even when the world tells you to keep going. But I want you to know this. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are simply walking through a difficult moment. Just like so many women before you. They did not rush either. They allowed themselves to pause. To breathe. To ask for help. And slowly, quietly, they found their way back to peace. And so will you. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine yourself stepping into a room lit only by candlelight. There's a chair waiting for you. A blanket folded neatly on the armrest. A cup of warm tea resting on the table beside it. No expectations. No pressure. Just this quiet hour. This gentle release. This permission to rest. You do not need to fix anything right now. You do not need to understand everything. You simply need to be here, breathing softly beneath the weight of the covers. listening to the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat. Outside, the night stretches wide and deep. Inside, you feel something shift, not suddenly but softly, like snow falling without making a sound. And then sleep comes. Not rushing, not demanding, but arriving gently like a friend who knows just when to arrive. So let this story wrap around you like a soft blanket. Let it remind you that you are safe, that you are seen, that you are held, even in the quietest moments. Wherever you are and whatever time it is for you right now. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. And dream gently.